Good evening, I'm Yuna Lee. We are changed. The world is in a different place.
I heard 5 pops.
Please, God, don't let him kill us.
Valentine's Day, a gunman attacks a Florida school.
It's not a drill. I hear gunshots.
There are numerous fatalities. It's a horrific situation.
17 students and teachers killed. Since this tragedy, there have been several threats to our area schools, from a Snapchat threat in Fayetteville to other threats in Hackett, Rogers, Vian, Springdale, Gentry, Fort Smith, and Bentonville.
I told her, get your brother and leave. Leave now.
A parent needs to know that their child is safe.
These local threats have led to lockdowns and arrests. We sat down with some of our area superintendents to continue a very important conversation on Chronicle school safety. The first question we asked was about the challenges our local schools face.
We're going to start with you, Dr. Berry. If you could just introduce yourself to us and talk about some of the challenges that your school district faces when it comes to safety for students.
It starts with just kind of who we are as a school district in terms of our structure. We are located in 25 different locations with almost 16,000 kids. And so we are bigger than many small cities that we'd have across the state. So that's where the concern starts in terms of we're concerned about the safety of our kids each and every day. And that's getting to school, being at school, going home from school, activities on the evenings and weekends. Again, we're concerned every day that our kids have a safe trip to and from school. But now, of course, with what's happening in our country over a number of years now, we have to be concerned about intruders coming into school. That's a whole new ballgame for educators that we've had to deal with now for a number of years. Rather than just the academics in our classroom, we have to worry about who can come in and what happens during the class as well.
Dr. Brubaker.
I'd add that one of the challenges we face is when you're dealing with older buildings, maybe those that were built in the 20s or even the 60s or the 80s, those facilities were not constructed with the kind of issues that we're now dealing with in mind. And so as we've engaged in strategic planning and worked on prioritizing greatest needs in the district, some of the things that have surfaced at the top of the list are safety and security. Some of the security measures physically in buildings that are industry standard in other fields are still things that we're playing catch up a little bit with in education.
And then moving to Springdale, Dr. Rollins.
The safety of our school turns on the kind of culture that's established in the school. We have great teachers and great principals that care deeply about each of our children. And so many times children come to us with issues that might be directly associated with school, or maybe they bring issues from their personal environment to the school. And so again, coming back to that culture piece, I often use this illustration, and if today I think we just want to share and talk with each other. I would ask my fellow superintendents to kind of put your hands above your head just like this. Can you all do that? And I would use this as an example. If we think of this circle, this sphere, as the culture of our schools, if we know that a child, for whatever reason, is standing outside that circle, we have to find ways to reconnect and bring that child back in and make sure, if it's within our power, that we have a caring adult directly associated with each of our children. That's a cultural perspective, but I think it goes a long way in establishing the foundation for school safety and school security that we can then build on through specialists that are a part of our school system. Our school counselors play a great role in addition to each of our teachers. And then we're beginning to see new specialty positions being brought to the schools, such as school resource officers, who play a vital role in helping establish safety and security in the schools. And some districts now are beginning to invest in social workers to really try to help deal with those kids who might be disenfranchised or stand outside the circle. And they may have issues pertaining to mental health issues that come quickly to the table and need to be addressed.
And now, Dr. Jones, if you could tell us what district you're from.
I'm Debbie Jones. I'm superintendent of Bentonville Schools, and when we talk about our greatest challenge today, it is certainly a community challenge. It is a challenge the schools and the families and our nonprofit organizations, the churches. This is truly a statewide, a citywide challenge because, as Dr. Rollins mentioned, those children that are isolated, they feel alone, and they don't feel the support. Those are the people and the students that we have to get to. Our greatest challenges, you know, our parents are feeling such an intense fear right now because they see all these items on the news. Our teachers are terribly concerned. They're prepared. They have gone through safety plans and drills. I don't think we can ever be prepared enough. So with every incident, we learn more, we do more, we research and invest. But you know, we have to get to the deeper problem. And the deeper problem are those isolated students that need support. And it's going to take a community-wide effort to get to all of those kids.
The biggest challenge that I've seen so far in my career, and now again in Fayetteville, is the role of social media and helping parents and staff, back to Dr. Jones's point, actually feel they and their children are safe. I've not had much luck telling someone how to feel, and we're living in a time where we actually have to demonstrate. There has to be more transparency likely in this issue, with this issue of student safety and school safety, I've seen in my career.
Next, social media is a big concern for these superintendents and for police we've talked to after some threats.
You know, social media, by the time it gets to the 10th or 12th person, things change, and it just kept escalating.
Still to come, how to bring troubled students into the circle before they end up in trouble.
I'm not aware of really any other way that a person in school could ruin their life any better than committing one of these crimes.
When it's your child that's hiding, it's just a little different, you know.
And locally, our schools are dealing with threats after the attack in Parkland, Florida. We've seen them in several districts, some posted on social media, and that platform is a concern for all school leaders.
I know someone asked me earlier about, do kids actually know the seriousness of what they post online? And it's bad enough to have to do what we do when there's a national tragedy, but as you know and you reported, it wasn't within 24 hours where Fayetteville was one of those schools across the state that had, I don't know whether we should call it copycat, but a student took it upon himself to post. And I wouldn't limit it to just what the parent's role is either. I'm so proud that our students were the ones that reported the issue. And we take a lot of pride in Fayetteville schools, Fayetteville High School, just like these folks do in their respective communities. I'm so proud that we have kids who see something wrong and tell an adult.
I think it also calls for, because social media is so active, additional communication. Parents with the school district then, and us with parents in our community. So something is out there on social media, and sometimes we monitor that, we see that, and we have to have some very purposeful communication.
And Dr. Rollins, I'm going to ask you this question, and Dr. Jones, you too. How do you identify that child that's outside of that circle? How do you identify a troubled student?
I think it turns on the relationships that we develop with each and every child. Our teachers may have very good insight into the kind of issues that young children are dealing with, or older children as well. So that personal relationship is really critical. The way we structure our schools to invite and create conditions by which those relationships can be developed are central. The parental piece can never be overlooked as well. Once we've established personal relationships with our parents, that conversation can ebb and flow in terms of, I'm concerned about this, or the resources available to help. And I expect that happens in every school district every day. But again, opening the door, inviting parents to be a part of the conversation, creating, again, structures, systems by which you invite parents in. You don't wait for an issue to arise before you invite them in.
In finding isolated kids, they speak to us in many ways. Sometimes it is through their social media, and I can say with our See Something, Say Something campaign, which we began at the beginning of the year, it's been very successful because our students have learned it's important to make that call. They're stepping up to the plate on several incidents so far, and every person has a role in finding the isolated child. Whether it's a bus driver, whether it's the cook in the cafeteria, everyone is an important role in the school system. And so we open the doors, even if you just have a concern, making that known to the administration, to the counselor, is really critical. And we have all those lines of communication open today, and we welcome input. And then we can get assistance to the kids that need that. But it really does take the whole community.
And parents we spoke with do want to get more involved.
And it made me want to take my children's safety into my own hands.
Next, should there be panic buttons and armed teachers in the classrooms?
I can't shake what happened in Parkland. It's consuming me. I'm thinking about it all the time.
Schools have talked about using multiple tools, from adding school resource officers to arming teachers. This month, the Arkansas legislature passed a bill that would provide $800,000 to fund panic buttons in public schools. And we asked a group of superintendents what they think.
I agree with my colleague in Fort Smith. Yes, I'm sure these things can help. But just going out and purchasing more of the same or the latest may or may not be in the best interest of the district or the facility that we're trying to outfit.
On this specific issue, we did fully implement the panic button, and my teachers and the host staff found it easier to call 911 because they could put the phone down, could hear the whole incident, and it's more responsive. And what you have to have in this whole process, because we are bombarded with all kinds of vendors and safety equipment, not all approved by your fire department and everyone else. And so there's a lot to be offered. You have to find what is practical, what works for your staff, listen to them, have conversations. What are they going to use? And I listened to the retired Newtown superintendent who was there, and he said the number one thing that's most important in an incident is that teachers lock their interior doors. There are simple things that we have to do and we have to practice daily.
We also rely on the advice of our professionals, which in this case it would be our police department. They are the professionals, and so again, it's that relationship that Dr. Rollins talked about. We've been in conversation with them from as soon as this came out, in terms of their advice about current protocols and devices and all of that. That's who we look to. And again, we have also found that I think you can call 911 about as quick as the panic button, which we also did implement in our district at a time.
The only thing I would add, I've been in my district a little bit over a year now, and one of the things I've been really impressed with is the level of coordination and cooperation, not only between the district and local law enforcement, but also between the different departments within the district, the regular meetings. And it's one thing to have a crisis plan that's on the shelf that you hope you never use, and then it's another thing to be constantly revisiting that. And I've really appreciated that level of detail and involvement on a regular basis, because safety really we've seen is it's an evolving and it's a changing thing. And as the tactics change, then we have to change too.
And I'll start with you, Dr. Berry. Should teachers be armed?
I think you're finding that it's not a single solution that takes care of everything. We learn from each other, we go to our experts, we look at as many things as we can. So I know that's being talked about, and I'm sure it'll be talked about as part of our plan going forward. Is that something that we want to look into? But it scares me. We have educators who are coming to our school every day to teach kids and have that relationship with them. And it's just one more thing to think that we'd have to arm a teacher in the decisions they would have to make and their location and all those things. It scares me, to be honest.
I've heard some comments about that type of model, And where it seems to have gotten the greatest acceptance and the most use are in rural communities where response times are perhaps longer, and where there may not be the on-site security staff or law enforcement officers like school resource officers. So those are some initial thoughts, but it's just something that we're going to have to give a lot of thought to, and there's going to have to be a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussion.
I do think that's an important decision that every district may choose to be a part of, certainly would have to decide on their own. In our district, we have processed this, as I have said, for many, many, many years. We just believe our children are better served when we have school resource officers in the schools taking this level of responsibility. And by taking that area with specialists trained in the area, teachers can focus more on the direct teaching of their children, and we think that's a much better plan overall. I do not see our school system taking that approach.
Our resource officers within our secondary schools are all armed, and my director of security, who has over 33 years with the Bentonville Police Department, is directing our efforts and directing some conversations around that area. Ultimately, it will be the decision of the board with a lot of expert input. We have a really good relationship with Bentonville Police Department and our fire departments, and it's really a community-wide effort between Bella Vista and Centerton and Bentonville. And so it is a decision that has to be weighed carefully, because we know the consequences of all of our behaviors. And so it will be considered, but ultimately the decision will be made in the best interest of all those students.
And so I'm troubled by it. I agree with Marlon. It scares me. And it not only scares me as a superintendent, it scares me as a parent. To think that my 22-year-old daughter, in the midst of chemistry and science class, should be responsible for not just school safety and safety of kids, but in that manner, by carrying a handgun and being trained. And maybe what Marlon was referring to earlier also was the idea that what scares me is I am neighbors to the University of Arkansas, and I think we know what took place recently with regards to carrying firearms. What concerns me is not just the teachers who might be carrying and can legally fire, but when the emergency personnel arrive, will they be able to determine who's on our side and who's not?
I worry about them coming home, I do, and I worry about their days and how it goes.
So what is the one most important message our superintendents have for students? Hear from each leader in 2 minutes.
I want my kid to come home and every child to come home every single day.
And that's the goal of local superintendents. They have one last message for their students and families.
I have one last question to wrap this up, and I will ask it from each and every one of you. I'll start with you, Dr. Wendt. For the students who are watching right now, what's one thing that you want to tell them?
Your superintendent is having conversations, as Dr. Rollins mentioned, committees, task forces. We've been having conversations long before this national tragedy. We take it serious. It's something that if it doesn't keep us up at night, concerned about the student who is outside the circle, it's something that's on our mind, and we're having conversations, and you are attending a school that is safer than the school that your teachers and your superintendents attended.
If you see students that are isolated, that don't seem to fit in, be kind. Try to make friends with those students, and if you have concerns, report it. If you see something, say something. There is someone here to help you in Bentonville schools.
I think our students know that the schools are absolutely there for them. The respect that each of us have for our students is phenomenal. their voice, their thoughts matter a great deal. And I think by and large, children our students are comfortable talking with their teachers and principals. And if not, I hope that will be a real goal of theirs to work on that, just as we need to work on the opening of doors and inviting kids in. But student voice is really important. And if a student is anxious, for whatever reason, they need to talk to their teacher, they need to talk to their principal, or call their superintendent and just have a conversation, because the safety of our schools is a priority.
Our students, I know, are watching the reaction of the students in Florida and across the country. And they're watching how strong some of those kids are being in terms of asking for changes and wanting to be a part of that change. And so that they are bound together by that tragedy that happened in their school. So I would ask our kids, help us be safe every day now, before anything happens. And it's that same thing that Dr. Wentz talked about. Just if you're aware of something, and a friend, someone in class, and they need some assistance, some help, need to talk to somebody, help us. And that goes for the parents as well. Parents that are involved in their kids' lives and the friends that their kids have, that's the tremendous asset to us, to let us try to help before something terrible happens.
Safety and their security is our first concern as a school district, and that, again, if they see something that's not right, to report it immediately, and also to just make them aware that there are hundreds of people that have been involved in a planning process this year, and that our top priority throughout that process has been safety and security. That remains on the top of our agenda, and we'll continue to push forward with those measures this spring.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Yuna Lee for Chronicle School Safety. Again, this is just the beginning of our conversation. Join us next time as we continue to look at the ways our community is working to keep your children safe.